Hi, I'm John Green. Welcome to Crash Course Religion. So it's time to brush your teeth, except you can't use toothpaste, and your toothbrush bristles can't absorb any water, and you absolutely cannot risk making your gums bleed when you brush. These are a few of the rules that some Jewish people observe when they celebrate the Sabbath, or Shabbat, every Friday. These actions are considered melahot, or prohibited activities on the Sabbath. So how do they maintain good oral hygiene? Well, some folks at the company Kosher Innovations designed a Shabbat-friendly toothbrush. It's got rubber bristles that won't absorb water or rough up your gums, and in lieu of toothpaste, folks can use mouthwash. But here's the thing, there are tons of Jewish people across the world who don't abide by these rules, and that doesn't make them any less Jewish. Judaism is, there's a theme emerging in this series, complex. A long time ago, a man named Jacob got into an all-night fight with an angel. Jacob was a descendant of Abraham who had previously formed a covenant or agreement with God, and yet here was Jacob, one of the inheritors of that covenant, duking it out with his truly. By the time the fight was over, he had a new nickname, Yisrael, meaning he who struggles with God. Jacob's descendants, the ancient Israelites, would eventually form what we know today as Judaism. But what does it really mean to be Jewish? You might say that the Jewish people have been wrestling with that very question ever since that long ago brawl. Judaism is often described as monotheistic, so you might think, got it, one God, easy, but consider this, about half of religious Jewish people in the United States today believe in some other spiritual force, not the traditional God of the Hebrew Bible. For comparison, only about 20% of American Christians do not believe in the God described in the Christian Bible. And then when you consider non-religious Jews, an identity we'll get into more later, as many as 44% of self-identified Jewish people in the US don't believe in God at all. So if a Jewish person doesn't consider themselves religious or believe in God, are they still Jewish? Oh, hold on, I need to take this. God, I thought I blocked you.
Hey, I'm on my burner. Well, I guess technically they're all burners. This one's easy, man. Being Jewish is a religion, so if somebody doesn't believe in God, they aren't Jewish. I got the guide right here. It says they got something like a Bible.
The Tanakh.
Something like a pastor.
Rabbi.
Something like a church.
Synagogue. Look, all those things are true, but many Jewish people don't follow a common creed. For a lot of folks, it's more about action than faith.
So all I have to do to be Jewish is act Jewish?
No, that's not what I said.
Listen, I'm just asking questions here, man.
Oh, God. One of the ways I know we don't live in a perfect world, Devil's Advocate, is because if we did, when somebody said, I'm just asking questions here, they would disappear automatically into a puff of smoke forever. Okay, to be Jewish, you could convert, which traditionally involves months of study and religious education, or you might be born into Judaism because it's often thought of as ancestral. But it's also cultural, a community with shared ways of cooking, eating, marrying, washing, and speaking. And that culture is wildly diverse. Many Jewish people believe that following religious law is extremely important, that it's inherent to the ultimate concern.
Oh, God, every time you quote Paul Tillich, I want to barf. Hold on, man. I think this is... Oh, yeah, that's my crypto broker. I gotta go.
I need to stop answering unknown numbers. The point is, Jewish identity can be a lot of things. Some Jewish people feel more connected to the cultural aspects, others to the religious or ancestral ones, and some to all or none of the above. But let's begin with the stuff that fits into our stereotypical religion box. Judaism is rooted in several ancient Israelite texts known as the Tanakh, but today we're going to focus on the Torah, which has shaped how Jewish people think of their relationship to God and each other for thousands of years. The written Torah refers to the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, which, according to Jewish tradition, God presented to a prophet named Moses. If those 5 books were episodes of Friends, they'd be Genesis, the one about how everything was created, Exodus, the one about Moses leading his people out of enslavement in Egypt, Leviticus, the one about how to live a holy lifestyle, Numbers, the one where the Israelites suffer while they wander the wilderness, and Deuteronomy, the one with 199 commandments. The written Torah contains recurring themes of exile and return, loss, and restoration. And these themes continue to resonate with many Jewish people today, particularly in light of a very long history of persecution, especially by Christians. Unfortunately, anti-Semitism didn't begin or end with the Holocaust. The history of anti-Semitism in Europe goes back a very, very long way, but one place where I've seen it, as somebody who spends a lot of time reading about infectious disease, is in European responses to pandemics, especially the Black Death, a horrifying pandemic that killed around half of all people in northern Africa, Europe, and Asia. In response to the Black Death, many Christian people came to believe that it was caused by Jewish people, especially Jewish people poisoning their rivers and their drinking water with some kind of magic serum that caused the plague. This was, of course, ludicrous. There was never any evidence for it. Many experts, including like the Pope, were pushing back against it, but it became so ingrained in the European idea that Jewish people were massacred around Europe in the 14th century. So I just want to emphasize that anti-Semitism in Europe certainly did not begin in the 20th century. It is very, very long-standing. All of this brings me to a brief digression about how old stories sometimes take on new life. The written Torah's themes of exile and return are a big part of the narrative surrounding the modern state of Israel, whose formation in 1948 was the goal of a political movement called Zionism. Zionism is a diverse movement, but it views Judaism as a nationality as well as a religious, cultural, and ancestral identity. Proponents advocate for a national home in Israel where Jewish people can live as citizens of a Jewish state. Now, obviously, this is complicated for lots of geopolitical reasons that we aren't going to get into here, but suffice it to say, Jewish people are not the only people with roots or a current presence in what is now the state of Israel. There are also people of the Druze faith, as well as Muslim and Christian Palestinians, many of whom have been and continue to be displaced. It's important to remember that not all Jewish people support the Zionist movement, but many do. The state of Israel has been widely, but not universally, recognized by other nations since 1948. You can find much, much more information on this historical context by following the links in the description of this episode. Okay, back to the Torah. So besides the written Torah, there's also the oral Torah, which, despite its name, has also been written down for a very long time. The oral Torah is the whole body of Jewish teachings, law, practices, interpretations, and scriptures passed down alongside the written Torah. If that all sounds a little contradictory, just wait until you hear about the two guys who started it. Let's head to the thought bubble. There once lived two rabbis, Shammai, the strict, fiery, rules are rules type, and Hillel, the gentle, caring, impossible to anger type. Despite their differences, the two rabbis actually agreed on most things, but they each had their own schools of Torah learning. Beit Shammai, the more strict, and Beit Hillel, the more lenient. And as those schools grew, so did the hot takes on the finer points of Jewish law, like, is it okay to divorce? Beit Shammai said only in serious cases. Beit Hillel said sure, for lots of reasons, from infidelity to intentionally being served spoiled food. Or is it okay to tell a white lie? Beit Shammai said never, even if it means telling a woman she doesn't look beautiful on her wedding day. Beit Hillel said every woman looks beautiful at her wedding. If you think she doesn't, no you don't. For centuries, the two schools debated marriage laws, holy days, and everything in between, and around the year 200 CE, rabbis started writing these opinions down, and then writing down opinions about those opinions, so that dueling perspectives literally circled each other on the page. This cacophonous debate became known as the Talmud, the central rabbinic text for most Jews today. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So today, the Talmud is the most comprehensive collection of oral Torah, with over 2.5 million words laying out opinions on how to interpret Jewish laws. And to add another wrinkle, when Jews talk about the Torah, they often mean both the written and oral Torah. That dual Torah is the source of Jewish rituals, holidays, and customs today, including practices like wearing a head covering called a kippah, circumcising baby boys 8 days after birth, and celebrating the weekly Shabbat, or Holy Day, every Friday at sunset. But because there are so many ways to interpret the laws of the dual Torah, the debates that started way back with Shammai and Hillel continue today around questions like, can women be rabbis? Or is it okay to push an elevator button on Shabbat using electricity when the law says to refrain from creating fires and sparks on that day? The answers depend on how you interpret the nature of Jewish laws in general. Are they meant to be unwavering, flexible, or somewhere in between? Ask 3 different Jewish people, and you might get 3 or more different answers. Many branches of Judaism have sprung from these interpretations. On the by-the-book end of the spectrum, Orthodox Judaism commits to the most traditional view of laws, especially when it comes to keeping Shabbat, following dietary restrictions, and defining gender roles. Like at an Orthodox synagogue, men and women worship in separate spaces. Only men can be rabbis, and a child is Jewish only if their mom is Jewish. Also, there's no pushing an elevator button on Shabbat, but you can ride in an elevator programmed to stop at all the floors automatically, and in places with large Orthodox populations like New York City and Jerusalem, some elevators are designed to do exactly that. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there's Reform Judaism, the most progressive branch and the most common in the US today, which views the Oral Torah as divinely inspired, but definitely human-made. Reform Jews think of traditional laws like a house built long ago that needs to fit its current occupants. So in Reform Judaism, men and women worship together, women can be rabbis, and as long as one parent is Jewish, the child is Jewish too. Whether or not you push an elevator button on Shabbat is up to you. In the middle, you have Conservative Judaism, which holds tradition and change as its motto. So there's reverence for the old ways, like tracing Jewish ancestry through the mother, but openness to people's needs now. Women can be rabbis and worship alongside men in conservative synagogues, and while using electricity on Shabbat is still discouraged, conservative rabbis made an exception in 2020, permitting live-streamed services in light of the pandemic. And then beyond the big three branches, there are other groups with their own interpretations. Reconstructionists who prioritize learning from the past, but finding what's meaningful now. People who say, I'm Jewish, but don't identify with any particular branch. And yes, Jewish atheists. And throughout history, largely in response to persecution in communities where they were a religious minority, Jewish people spread across the world in what's called the Jewish diaspora, and unique communities emerged in each new location. Ashkenazi Jews in Eastern Europe, Sephardic Jews in Spain and Portugal, and Beta Israel in Ethiopia. All of these voices, all of these perspectives, and all of them Jewish. So is Judaism a religion? Yes. But being Jewish doesn't have to be a religious identity. It's also a people, a culture. To many, being Jewish is much bigger and more fluid than what the word religion can hold. Being Jewish can look and feel very different based on your interpretation of Torah, or the synagogue where you attend services, or if you don't attend services at all but still identify as Jewish. Judaism is a religion, but it's also a way of being, a lineage, a culture, what some scholars have called a civilizational identity. In our next episode, we'll explore many of the ways that people practice the Christian faith, including myself. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course Religions, which was filmed at our studio in Indianapolis, Indiana, and was made with the help of all of these nice people. If you want to help keep Crash Course free for everyone forever, you can join our community on Patreon.